for a second. All right. As promised, we told you that we would be a complete DIY in developing your book, your audio book, video, and your media kit, and everything you will need to kind of establish yourself as an expert. So I am here with mentor Brady Mitchell. And what we're going to do is we are going to record as we go through this process together so you can actually see it take place step by step. Now, in front of me is a template. And it's got two parts to it. The first is a general outline where we're just going to cover what each chapter is about. And the second, which is just below, you can see it here, is an in-depth outline. And we're going to go through that as well. And we're going to develop, each of them is going to have 2 to 3 different parts. And we're just going to write anything from a single word to a single sentence. And the whole purpose of that is to just spark your memory as you go through. So during the outline process, you'll be able to walk through all of your thoughts and see just how much information you have on this topic and really lay it out in front of you. And then when you go back to record, you'll go to the outline and you'll just see what each of your note or reminder is, and then you'll talk about that and just move through the process that way. And that's how we're going to speak your book. And like I said, you know, the outline should take you between half an hour to an hour, and then recording the book should take you anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on how much you're talking on each topic. So here with Brady, we're going to go ahead and talk. We're going to go into his general outline. So in the general outline, I've mapped out introduction and conclusion, but both of those say that we're actually only going to cover that part during the in-depth outline. So we're actually just going to start with chapter 1. And so if you'll notice, on each of these points, 1, 2, I've written some things, and these numbers, because I don't know how many principles you have, and some people don't even know how many principles they want to have. What I've listed there are just some brief notes on kind of the numerology behind each of these numbers. Now, I'm not a big numerology guy. I don't really follow that. But there are certain audiences that do have a big following in that. And so it always is a factor to consider as you pick the number of principles you're going to have in your system. How does your audience respond to that? So I'm going to point out number 3 specifically. Christianity references the Trinity and the Holy Three, right? God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so culturally, within Western culture, a lot of people see that as the holy or the divine, or a reference to godhood, the number 3. But that is a cultural influence of Christianity. If your audience is not Westernly influenced heavily by Christian culture, or if your audience is largely not people of faith, that number 3 is not going to have that significance for them. If we look at some of the others, like 11 is often seen as what's called the infinite, because it's 1 greater than human finger count, right? And our entire number system is based on how many fingers we have. That's why we deal in base 10, is because we have 10 fingers. And so our entire mathematical systems kind of build off of that. And so 1 more than the number of fingers you have until you have an education in mathematics is an incomparable infinite. And so that's why that's there. And so, like I said, I'm not a big subscriber to these, but you need to know your audience. And if they are, you're going to want to pick a number that corresponds with their belief systems to kind of strengthen your value to that audience. So let's go ahead and jump into our general outline. All right, Brady, are you ready?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, sounds good. So let's go ahead and what is the first principle you want to address? Now, Brady, I have shared this outline with you, so you should be able to jump on here as well.
Okay, let me jump on that real quick.
So. No? Okay, give me one.
Shared. Let me get into shared.
Okay, I was going to say I can share it. I can share your direct link in your email.
And it's called the book outline.
Speak your book template for outline.
Can you share it to the bam.mentoring@gmail.com?
Bam?
Bam.mentoring@gmail. There we go.
Here we go. I'm going to give you the power to edit. So. Got it?
See, really, that was just a shameless plug to get my email out there.
So.
No, still not coming through. Hold on 1 second. It's usually pretty quick.
Yeah. So I will mention that before we sat down to do this, Brady and I, we took an afternoon and we were kind of mapping out how to do his book. So we've discussed this beforehand. So he might be a little bit quicker in coming up with his answers and discussing this than you will be. And as I mentioned, we're doing the in-depth here, so you can do this by yourself. Part of our service is that we will give you an hour to meet with one of our representatives, and they will talk you through this process if you want to sign up for that. But I am going through it here with him, so you do see the full DIY elements, and you can kind of do it yourself if you financially, you just can't afford our services, and you really just have to do the grunt work yourself. So, all right, now you ready?
I am. I got it.
Okay. So first thing we want to talk about is how many principles are we going to have? And I'm also going to ask you why. How many and why?
I don't think I've actually come up with exactly how many. I believe I'm up to probably about 5 or 6.
Okay.
The reasoning why so far is just because it's how I see my process of being able to help people. Like my first one's the seeds of belief, and going through experiences and finding why they made these decisions and these choices they've made of to believe what they believe.
Okay.
Okay. So
this brings up a good point. Right now, the way the template is set up in these 2 parts, a general outline and an in-depth outline, it's set up for what's known as an outliner or a gardener. This is someone, as an outliner or an architect. And this is someone who likes to plan everything out. There are writers, and even as a mentor, this may be your style, and they prefer to just dive in. And so there are some people who you'll just dive in and start filling out your principles. And then once you've gotten them all down on paper, you can organize them in whatever order you think is most efficient. And so I've kind of seen that from Brady here. That's kind of his process. Because he's like, I don't really know how many. And that may be you. You may not know how many. So skip the general outline and just start writing principles. Right? Just start fleshing out the more in-depth, skip the intro and skip the conclusion part of the in-depth, and just start on the principles and fill out one principle after another. And then once you've got them all down, you'll be like, okay, how am I going to organize these in the most efficient fashion? So go ahead and since you've got access to the doc, go ahead and write in your seeds of belief as principle 1, right? That's what you want.
Actually, I'm going to change back that to I think it's more my fail and the find all I learned principle, because to be able to find those seeds, you have to be able to find what you learned about that situation.
Okay. So your first principle you're going to discuss is FAIL as an acronym, which is find all I learned. Right? So we go FAIL. Okay, so that's the first principle we're going to cover. Okay, what's the second?
And then I think it's the seeds of belief.
So, seeds of belief. All right. And after that, what are we going to discuss?
Living life consciously.
Consciously or deliberately?
Deliberately. It's kind of in the works of which one I want to do. It's conscious or deliberate.
Okay. Okay. And after that, what's the next principle?
It gets started. It's getting into the action phase of making a system. I guess that's it. Building a system.
Building a system. Okay. And after that,
putting that system into action.
Okay. All right.
And fail again.
Fail again. Is it fail again, or fail? You want me to write fail again?
I think fail again. I think that works because we got to go back through and find what we learned about our system.
Okay. Okay. Fail again. And the next principle.
Then that's when you get to really refine your system. So it's not exactly how to word that right now.
Reevaluate.
Yeah, so that's the reevaluate is the fail because you've got to evaluate. That's what you're reevaluating is when you fail again. But this is when you get to really hone in those skills that system.
Okay, I don't understand the difference between fail. I'm assuming you do. So what do you want me to write here?
So fail is more about finding.
You don't need to explain it. We're just mapping right now. We're just mapping.
I know. I'm just trying so you can see where I'm saying is that fail is about finding what you've learned, why the system is either working or not working, and then so you get to re-implement your system.
Okay, I see.
Adjusted.
Re-implement. Okay, and the next principle? You don't have to create them. If you're done, you can just say that's.
I think just after that is just always evaluate, and so it's just rinse repeat type thing, so
okay.
I guess that could be the last principle is just rinse and repeat. But
okay, well, I think you can kind of pile that into re-implement, but if you want to write it up as a different chapter, we can do that.
No, I think 7's good.
Okay. All right. So we've got 7 principles here. I'm not going to delete these because this is the template I want to hang on to. Yeah, otherwise I'd probably just delete all these. So now we're going to go into the more in-depth outline. So we've kind of outlined those so he knows where he's going. So the introduction, right? So the introduction needs to have a few important pieces. It needs to have a hook that is going to get people's attention. It needs to introduce who you are and why you matter or why they should listen to you / read your book. It needs to cover what you're going to teach them in the book, what they will know by the end. And it needs to make some promises for those who are willing to go the journey, right? Like if you tell somebody to hike a trail, to get to the top of a waterfall, there needs to be a waterfall there. And so basically you're telling me if you take this journey, this is the impact, right? So this is what we're going to do in the introduction. So what's the hook?
Here's kind of, let me copy and paste right here. And
okay. All right. So there is our thing. So you've noticed he's written a little bit of a paragraph here. And that's what he's going to use to remind him when he starts and goes into record. Okay. And what are you going to teach them in the book, or what will they know by the end?
Let's do that again.
Yeah, you can go ahead and copy paste. That's absolutely fine. So like I said, I've been talking to Brady about this for a while. And I actually had him fill out a template already before we decided we were going to record it for this in-depth training. And then I need to put this on Hinge. What will they get / learn or change by the end? So I guess we kind of cover what will they learn.
Yeah, I guess you could really take that last sentence and put it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you can kind of bleed that down, just to make sure that you've got everything covered. What did you do? Oh, you were just deleting my sentence. Leave my sentence there. You can.
No, I was deleting my sentence, but for some reason it deleted yours too.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So that's the intro we've set up. So now we're going into part 2, principles. So I've got it structured so that it's going to say part 2 here. But this is essentially, we'll go through this step maybe twice here in the training, but you'll just repeat this one until all of your principles are done. So if we go up here to our general outline, it says fail. So we're going to go through and fill out this principle according to fail, right? So I'm just going to write fail here, and then I'm going to give us a bold and an underline. Oh, that's not underline. So that's how we're filling out this part of the document. And like I said, you can do a copy paste and just kind of cycle through to get it all down here. So essentially, what we want to do is have a short theory, just a paragraph or two, just a really simple overview of what they'll learn in this specific chapter, so they know what to pay attention to as they go in. Then we're going to tell a story from it can be a personal experience, it can be a story that you've heard that really kind of illustrates this idea. Then we're going to provide proof, evidence, and long theory. So we'll have any scientific studies you have to back you up, you can explain the theory in greater depth. Then we're going to have testimonials and anecdotes from other people. So other people's stories that back up this principle and this idea. And then you'll have how do you implement this? What's the plan of action? You've taught them this principle. What do they do with it? And then we're going to list out common struggles that people have when they attempt this principle with their own lives. So like I said, it can be a one-word answer we write in here. It can be a sentence or a paragraph as we fill this out. So let's go ahead and fill this out for fail. So let's short theory. Like I said, you don't have to cover it here. If fail is enough for you to know how you're going to present your short theory, that's fine. Or we can write more, whatever works for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, short theory would probably be more of find an experience that either you got results you did not like or that you were successful.
Failure or success? I just want to keep this.
Yeah, failure or success.
Failure or success. Okay. That's your reminder note there. Okay. And then the anecdote. What's the story?
It's a story of when I was 8, 9 years old.
Is that enough? Or do you have a few stories when you're 8 or 9, or is that?
We can do that.
Is that just gonna?
My brother. Yeah, we could go to where my brother got very annoyed with me growing up.
Okay, and that's enough for the specific story you want to put there?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and proof, evidence, long theory. And like I said, if you can't think of anything for this, you may end up skipping one or two of these steps. I would say do not skip short theory, personal anecdote, or long theory. Don't skip those steps. But if you don't, you might not always have scientific studies to back you up. You may not have testimonials yet to back up your principles. So some of these steps you can skip because you may not have these yet, or the nature of your mentorship doesn't yield these. But some of them you're going to need. Short theory, so they kind of know what the whole chapter is about. Anecdote, they're going to need because it connects you to them more, and it really helps illustrate the principle. And then the implementation is important, and listing out common struggles that people encounter as they attempt it. These are all very important points of developing a well-rounded principle. So let's go ahead and what do we need for proof, evidence, and long theory?
I think that would really go to, without getting way into it, at least.
Yeah, you don't need to get into it.
Yeah, so how the way I decided to interpret his reaction to me is how I decided to allow others to treat me throughout my life.
Okay. How my brother treated me impacted how I let others treat me. Right?
Correct.
Okay. So testimonials, other people's experiences. So you could just name them by first name or something if you have those. Other people who've tried this and whatnot and talk to you about it. Like,
Yeah, we can go into Delwyn and Heather.
okay. So you can tell their stories related there. Exercise and implementation plan.
That's still kind of in development, but yeah, taking them through a process of a belief breakthrough process. It's almost a
Okay.
an information gathering mission, you know. So
Yeah. So, okay. And so you said this is still in development, and that worries me a little bit because I need you to think through that enough. So you're not going to say it's in development because you understand we're not coming back to this. The next time you come back to this, you are recording your book.
Right. No, and I honestly, as I said, the belief breakthrough process, that is not under development. I was just trying to think of what plan I wanted to implement into it, but as I said, belief breakthrough, that's where I want to go with it. So
okay. And then common struggles people have. Like, again, we don't have to list them all here. What you need is just something to remind you what all your ideas on this topic are.
Most of it's going to be that people are scared to get deep enough.
So, okay. So we filled out the principle for fail. I'm going to do a copy, paste. And what's our next principle here? Seeds of belief. So I'm going to go with, so I'm going to go chapter, I guess this is chapter 1 because it's after the introduction. Chapter 1, fail. Right, just. And then we're going to go chapter 2, seeds of belief. Okay.
So you can actually leave quite a bit up of this because it really goes into going back into that same.
Well,
because we just found the experience and now we're going to go back to those same experiences and find the seeds of belief that you chose and then also seeds of belief that you could have chosen.
Let's see. Okay. All right. So you're probably going to want different reminders as you read through this to create the audiobook, but it's your outline. You fill it out however you need to talk about this. So go ahead. So how would you, so short theory, what are you going to change here on short theory?
Identifying that specific one that you want to work on. So identifying that specific memory or
identify what you want to work on.
Yeah.
Okay. Anecdote. What's the story behind this one? So sometimes the story doesn't have to be, sometimes the story is where you learned the principle. Sometimes the story is where you saw someone else learn it. Sometimes it's your personal experience with it, but it's just a story that helps people understand the idea.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna stay with the same story.
Same story, okay.
Because with a different perspective.
Okay, so copy. So I'm just gonna put new perspective. So we're gonna revisit the story with a new perspective here. Okay. Proof evidence.
And then that's where we go. That's where we go because we gathered a new perspective, what we could have chosen about the situation.
Okay. How you could have reacted differently. Okay. Testimonials, other people's experiences with the principle. Do we have anyone's names for that?
Not right now. I've got plenty of other people that I can.
Okay. So again, this is this.
Let's go with Sarah. I've got.
Okay.
Sarah and Marianne.
So, okay, Sarah and Marianne, and the exercise and implementation of the plan here.
It's another form of belief breakthrough.
Another form. Okay. Is that enough to remind you?
Yes.
Okay.
Or it's really not another form. I guess it's the continuation and fulfillment of the breakthrough.
Okay. So just from my perspective here, belief breakthrough seems to be a big thing, and we haven't addressed it as a principle to discuss.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So just me as, you know, as someone approaching this, I'm not, you know, I'm only looking at the outline, but I'm like, he says belief breakthrough in chapter 1. He says belief breakthrough in chapter 2. At no point has he told me what belief breakthrough is.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I agree. That would probably be in the
Introduction.
have to be into the introduction. Yeah.
Not it. I mean, I'm going to say it doesn't fit an introduction. This is a teaching principle. This is an idea or a process that is part of your system, and you've started teaching when you go into that. You know, you can fit it in where you want to, but it needs to come before fail, because you're using it in fail.
No, I agree.
So just an issue you might want to look at.
Okay. No, we'll put that into the first of it, and we'll go down through.
So you can, if we go back and look at this, the in-depth outline, if we look at chapter 1, you can take a segue here and say, explain belief breakthrough.
Okay. Yeah. I think that works.
But yeah, so it needs to be in a chapter here somewhere, because yeah. So like I said, you can organize this how you want, and like even when we're done here, you can go through and juggle it. If you know, because you know the gardener, that's kind of how you have to do it. Things just kind of come out, and then you're like, oh, I need to put that back in, and so you can shuffle things around. The important part here is just that we get the outline done, and whatnot, and so that you can look at it and be like, all I have to do is sit down and talk. Everything is already laid out.
Yeah.
Okay, so seeds of belief, another form of belief breakthrough. Common struggles when people attempt to implement seeds of belief.
Being stuck in their own perspective, or feeling a sense of I was right, an ego, being stuck in ego, even.
Stuck in ego. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste chapter 2 down, and we'll do chapter 3. All right. So, and then chapter 3 is living life deliberately. Okay, living life deliberately. Short theory.
Short theory is that you already are a powerful creator. How about you create what you want?
Create what you want. Okay. The anecdote.
I'm going to go into my overweight and ex-wife, or my divorce story, I guess.
Okay. That should be divorce, shouldn't it? Okay, and evidence and long theory.
The evidence is how the things that I've created after going through the process of fail and finding the seeds of belief.
You can
after, I don't know, I guess what I've been able to create after being unstuck.
Okay, so what you're doing here is you're expanding, right? And so I think you're not connecting short theory and long theory. Short theory is one, just to really quick be like, we're going to be talking about you create what you want in this chapter. and I'm going to illustrate for you that most of your life is a manifestation of the choices you have made based on immediate needs and immediate wants. And even though you may not be happy with what you've created, it is what you created, right? So that's short theory. Long theory says, okay, so I've told you this story about me being overweight. And so long theory is really just taking short theory and expanding it, going into the full depth because you were so short.
So that's what I'm saying is that it's what I've been able to create since I used my long theory. You know what I mean? So I mean, you can say now I've created what I want.
Okay.
I'm living deliberately, and this is what I'm creating.
Okay. All right. Testimonials and other people's experiences or stories.
I think I could use Sarah again. We've had some, and then man,
you don't have to have a ton of them. Like, you know, I mean, this may not even be someone you know personally. Like, you know, part of teaching, you can pull big stories and bring them in. You know, like Malcolm Gladwell, that's what he does. You know, he has these really big stories. You know, and because he's a reporter, he goes out and he talks to them and he meets them. But these aren't like his close personal friends of the stories that he's telling.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we could go with even just Tony Robbins. You know. Okay.
All right. So that's fine. Let's see. I read a book that's called The Sports Gene, and it talked about genetics in sports. And a lot of the stories he told were not necessarily about people he personally knew and had interviewed. Like in it, he talked about, one of the stories he told was about Michael Phelps and his really short legs, and how they thought that he always had Marfan's disease. So he doesn't know Michael Phelps personally.
Right.
But he told the story in the book because it illustrated the principle that he was teaching.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's where I go with, you know, Tony Robbins. I don't know him personally, but
yeah, but you can tell his story if he's kind of made that story public or the information is public that way.
Yeah, Anthony Robbins is Tony
well,
Robbins.
Yeah, he's very public, so I'm pretty sure public. He is there. So, okay, exercise implementation plan.
And this is kind of where we're starting to get into the next building the system. I think it really is finalizing the belief breakthrough process. I guess this is all really.
Well, my thought here is it almost seems like based on the chapter as you've outlined it here, it's about defining what you want.
Yeah. No, right? I think that's really what it is defining what you want and finalizing how you envision that.
So, yeah, because based on the chapter. And then common struggles when people attempt to implement this principle.
That so many people can tell you exactly what they don't want, but can't tell you what they really want.
Okay.
Which then leads me into another principle we could put in there, even how to define what you really want.
Okay. Well, if you want to put that as a principle, I've given you access, so you can jump up and put that in there. So, and that again, you know, Brady tends to be more of a gardener. I've kind of forced him to be a little bit more of an architect because that's my style, and that's the way I set this up. But like I said, people will approach this process differently. And if you've noticed as we've gone through this, you know, we talked about the issue with belief breakthrough, that it wasn't mentioned. And now we're talking about, you know, he's thinking of, I got this other principle I need to put in there. So realistically, a better system for Brady would just be to be like, okay, what's the first chapter? And we do the outline and be like, okay, what's the next principle? And he'd probably, you know, and I'll be like, well, what's this belief breakthrough? I don't know what this is. And so he'd be like, I want to make that a subsection in a chapter, or I want to make it its own chapter. And then, you know, and then again, so doing it here. So, and then for you, we would then take it after you've, you know, done everything, we would then organize those into what we think would be the most effective presentation style in the general outline. So it's kind of the reverse here. Unless someone contracts with me and wants to do that style specifically and okays us to record that process with them, we will not have a separate video showing an author doing that process. We'll just talk about the fact that some people will approach it that way. Okay, common struggles. People can't tell you what they want. All right. Okay, so we've outlined the first 3 chapters of his book here. So now we're going to jump down and do the conclusion, which realistically he'll probably change because he is more that gardener type. And as he fills out a few more principles and whatnot as he goes along, I'm pretty sure he'll end up coming up with 2 or 3 more principles. But we're going to jump into it here just so you can kind of see it, because it is a little bit different. And then that will be the end of the training. And so if you're interested in more, then you can go ahead and jump over to the next video. But let's go ahead and finish out here. So conclusion. Yeah. So we'll do the conclusion and the offering of hope. Oh, why did it do that? Okay. Some people like a bigger narrative style. And one of the things you can do is if you have a really big, long story that illustrates multiple principles, you can tell the portion of the story connected to each of those principles in each chapter. And if that is the style you've chosen, then when you get to the conclusion, you're going to finish the story that ties everything together and point out how it changes people's lives. So if you have that, you can do that. In the conclusion, you can talk about how your story here that you're going to be doing your wrap-up with is going to be how learning all of these principles has changed your life.
Right. It's the conclusion of the hero's journey.
Right.
By going through this process, how I've come out on the other side as being a mentor that has, helped people to.
So what I'm pointing out here is right now we're closing out any stories. So this is the first one. So if you have structured it so you just told each story in completion in each chapter, you'll skip this step. Okay. So then the next one is we're paraphrasing your transformation. So what you were about to say, be like, okay, I've learned all this. This is how it's changed me. Okay.
Yeah. So my lessons learned.
Okay, put that there. And then you're going to offer the promise of transformation as they work at these principles.
Okay.
So you can even tell a story of a friend that's already gone through this, that you've worked with, a client or somebody.
You could even go into another testimonial type.
Yeah. Now you still need to make the general promise to people who take the journey, but you can kind of lead into that by saying, I worked with this person and, we did these things. And then I promise you will have the same outcome if you put in the effort.
Okay.
So there's a couple ways to approach that.
I was gonna say, I think it's more about showing my personal, you go through your personal life lessons learned, but then also what I've created, what I've been able to create through this. So I guess it could be going through and I guess it really just comes down to being able to live life deliberately and being able to be a conscious creator,
Okay. So what is it you promise them? How is their life going to change if they study and do these things? How does their life change?
It changes however they choose to change it.
Okay. So what you're promising them is the power of directed change, right?
Yeah. The power to make them to allow themselves to change.
So, okay. So talk to me about your comfort level in speaking the book. I know we haven't done all the chapters yet, but just looking at this, how comfortable are you sitting down and saying, I can just go through and follow this outline and speak the book? How comfortable are you at that point?
I think pretty good. I mean, each of those parts of my, each part of the chapters and stuff like that. I think the introduction,
Okay, so I've kind of deleted things here. So you can delete this down as much as you want. I mean, essentially, we could probably even go like this and just, have his points here like that. And so then he can sit down, and now there's no other text, just
yeah,
what he
no,
needs to read.
I think what I was looking at the I think the introduction will actually be pretty lengthy, and when I'm talking about it, because there's a lot of
yeah.
So the beginning of the hero's journey is the trials, and so yeah, but that's implied.
So yeah, because like this is just an outline,
right?
Yeah.
So I just need to trigger it. So yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
So, and like I said, so you can leave in whatever format you want. In 2, I've taken it down just to his points, and he'll just move through that. In 1, we've left the details there, and then maybe 3, I'll pare it down to, short descriptions like this, and so you can kind of pare it down or leave it as is, however you want, just so you can follow it and get the book out. That's the whole point of this. And some people don't even need this. They just sit down and they talk the book, and it's easy for them. But I know a lot of people, it's just easier. You get your thoughts out, and then you can follow the outline. And it's really important as you're writing the book, because this way you're not missing things as you go through, right? And so, as you've noticed here with Brady, he missed a few things.
It helps me stay more on track.
Yeah, but even you missed a few things the first time, and while we're outlining it, that's fine. You can go through and put it back in. But when we start recording the book, it's going to be a lot harder to put those things in. Now the process we are going to walk you through here is so we'll do another recording video, and we'll probably just do 10 minutes where I'm going to sit down with Brady. I'll be like, okay, it's time. We're going to record. And we'll show you that video. You can see him working that part of the process. And then the next video will just be a really short video saying, okay, we've connected with this service. We're submitting his audio. They'll get it back us in 24 hours. Then we'll show you the transcript we get back. And then we will, I will be his editor for this project. And as in the services, because we are still developing them, what we're going to be doing is hiring out the editing services to different people. If we like their work, we will continue to work with them. If we are not satisfied, then I will have to go back through and edit. Which is part of the reason the project is still in development, and we're really only taking on 2 clients a week, is because as we try new vendors, if it doesn't work out, we have to do all the cleanup to make sure we're getting the quality we want on all of that. So like I said, so then you'll see me, and I will do the editing, and I will record that so you can learn some self-editing techniques. Now, it is really hard to self-edit, and I'll talk about some of the struggles there, but we'll walk you through some basic editing techniques and some tools you can use to edit your book as well. And like I said, this is a complete DIY course. There's a series of videos. The general video you saw before linking down to this one covered everything we're going to take you through. And these are just for if you want a little bit more in depth to make sure you got it all. So, all right. So thank you, Brady, for your time. And really like I said, we will record your next part of the process, which will be you recording. And then there'll be several videos, and then we'll come back to you as you get the edits from me, and as you go through them and look at them, and we can kind of talk about them.
Okay, I'm excited for the rest of the process.
So
I mean, this is. I mean, like you said, I am not this type of person. I'm not an oracle type person that just likes to go line by line.
Yeah.
A free flow, but having this structure to be able to pull me back to it is actually probably better for my readers.
Yeah. Well, and so I recommend that you fill out the outline regardless of how you generate the content that goes in. I do recommend you fill it out.
And I will.
For the purpose of the reader. And not just you, I'm recommending everyone.
Yeah.
But so let's say that if let's just take an example here. So let's say if I started going through this process with somebody who's like, well, I don't really know for sure, but okay, let's step back a phase and let's go to what's called the brainstorm phase and just be like, okay, what's a principle you think is important? And we'd write it down, right? Seeds of belief. We don't care about what order it's in or anything. I'll be like, all right, let's talk about everything you know about that. And we're just going to write it down word or sentence, right? And we'd just be like, when I was a kid, my brother.
I think this would be another video to show brainstorming
so I guess we could do that as well. We'd release it a little out of order here, but we could do that as well. But yeah, so there's this brainstorming process, and I guess I can go through this with Brady. And so what this is just to get down all your ideas, all the information, right? And so once you have that down, it's out on paper, you've thought it through, you can kind of look at that and be like, okay, what are my big principles here? If I'm, maybe we write in here, fail like this, and in here we have live deliberately. No, deliberately. And then here we have, breakthrough, was it called breakthrough process? What is it?
Yeah, just breakthrough.
Okay. Yeah, just a breakthrough.
Belief breakthrough.
Belief breakthrough. Belief breakthrough. What else did we have here? And then maybe as another subheading here, I wrote build a system. And then over here, I wrote education. And then over here, I was like scholar syndrome. Right. And then after we'd written all this stuff down, be like, you know what? This is one of the big ideas. I'm going to do a chapter on that. You know what? This is one of the big ideas. I'm going to do a chapter on that. This is one of the big ideas. I'll do a chapter here. And, this is a big idea. I'll do a chapter here. And this is a smaller idea, but I'll do a subheading on that, And so it'll look kind of chaotic, but you'll say, you can look at all the stuff you've written down on all these ideas and principles and pick out, be like, okay, these are the big ones I need to hit. And these are some of the subheadings I need to hit. And, maybe then we'll go in and be like, okay, I'll be like, this is a story I'm going to tell. And so you can start to find all the pieces and start to organize it. And so that's the brainstorming phase. Brady's requested, and we will do a video on the brainstorm process. And so that would precede this step. So if you're watching the videos in order, once we get the brainstorming video out, we will slide it ahead of this one so you can see that. So you maybe have already seen it. But yeah, so you can kind of get a feel for the process here. If you need it, there'll be another video. As far as filling out the outline and the brainstorming, that's the part of the process we can't do for you. Now, as part of our services, we can have somebody call you up and do a half-hour to an hour session where they help you fill out your outline. But this is the part of the process that has to come from you. Right?
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm more talking to the general audience, not just you.
Right. But I'm just saying, I remember that a few months ago when you and I started kind of talking about this, that we did a brainstorming session. And it was incredible because it did pull out some of these principles that were more, they're like, oh, that is something I need to talk about specifically. Because I thought it was just something that would go in one of my other chapters, but it actually ended up being a chapter itself.
Yeah. And so the brainstorming process, you pick an idea And then, you know, for me, I'm not very scatterbrained. I'm very focused. And so me, I'd be like, okay, seeds of belief, pick it. And then we go down and be like, when my brother was a kid, what's that story? Is there anything underneath that we need to go into? And so, you know, that's how I would do it. But, you know, it's a brainstorm. You kind of do whatever you want. Then you pick out the big ones, and then you pick out the sub ones. And, you know, very, very quickly, it starts to generate this exact same structure. Be like, here's the big heading. Here's the story that goes under the big heading. You know, and now we'd have to start reorganizing this, be like, well, that's a big one. So let's pull the big ones out and leave the little ones in, and be like, okay, now I do need to talk about, you know, the bigger theory here. What is a seed of belief? I guess that's already there, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking this is what we should do on the next video. Going over this of how to brainstorming and how to pull those things out. So
pull the outline out of the brainstorm. So yeah, so that'll be our next video. We'll brainstorm, and then we'll pull the outline out of the brainstorm. So yeah, so we'll do that in the next video, just making sure we cover all this. And then, as I said, we have a representative who can meet with you if you want to sign up for the service and go through this process with you. But this part has to come through you. The same thing with the initial recording of the book as well will need to be you. Now, once you've worked with an editor and the back and forth, our service is such that we will then either we can contract a VO artist who will read the book for you, or in the generating of an audiobook, you can read it yourself, whatever direction you want to go there. Yeah, so we'll call that good here.
All right. Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah. All right. Are you still getting a screen share?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm gonna